All right, so we're going to deep dive into this Tillman Fertitta guy, right? Built an empire, Landry's restaurants, Golden Nugget casinos. Hell, even owns the Houston Rockets.
The man knows business, that's for sure.
Yeah, I mean, that's putting it mildly. So what can we even, like, begin to learn from a guy like this?
Well, he doesn't beat around the bush. Like, straight out, Tillman's pretty much convinced there's an entrepreneurial gene.
Oh, come on. Like, some people are just, what, destined to be business moguls?
He thinks so, yeah. Some people are just wired for it, you know?
Okay, but doesn't that feel a little, I don't know, a little unfair? Like, what if you weren't born with that gene? You're just screwed.
Not necessarily. I mean, he's not saying it's the only path. Like, Tillman gets it. Yeah. You can develop those skills.
So it's not all about genetics.
Right. It's about figuring out what you're good at and, like, really honing in on that talent.
So, like, you might not be born a rock star, but you can learn to shred on the guitar.
Exactly. Yeah.
Makes sense.
And look at Tillman. I mean, look at his childhood.
Yeah. Hustling from day one. Like, briefcase at 8 years old, always scheming. I mean, it's like, come on, those traits, they were always there.
Yeah. Right. So maybe there's something to this whole gene thing. But what about, like, defining success? With Tillman, it seemed like it was all about these big, like, almost outlandish goals, you know?
Yeah.
Owning a jet by 35.
Yeah, making the Forbes 400 list, that kind of thing.
Right, exactly. So is it just about, like, setting these massive goals and chasing them?
I mean, yeah, having the goal is important, but they weren't just about ego for him. They were tied to solving problems. Take the jet, for example.
It wasn't just a look at me, I'm rich kind of thing.
Exactly. He needed for his business to be more efficient.
Yeah. Okay, so it's got to be more than just, I want this, I want that. It's got to tie into, what, like a bigger purpose or something?
Yeah, and also thinking about the needs of the business. I mean, it all has to work together, right? I mean, that makes sense, but how do you even know, like, when to walk away from something? Every entrepreneur must hit that wall at some point.
Right?
Like, do you double down or do you cut your losses? How do you even decide?
He uses this great analogy about gold mining.
Okay, I'm listening.
So how do you know if you're 3 feet from striking gold or 300 feet? You could be throwing good money after bad, right?
Yeah, for sure. So how do you avoid that?
Well, Tillman's advice is to always be looking for, like, constant improvement. Are you getting closer to your goal? Are you actually gaining knowledge, experience? If not, maybe it's time to rethink things.
Yeah, that's like that saying, insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results or something like that.
Totally.
But then you have, like, the opposite situation. He bought Rainforest Cafe when everyone thought it was a joke.
Right. And look at it now.
And it's still going strong. That's wild.
It is. It's like he saw something that everyone else missed.
Yeah, saw the potential that no one else did.
Exactly. But, you know, one thing that I think is really interesting about Tillman is that he always plans for the worst case scenario.
What do you mean by worst case?
Like, he sits down and really thinks, what's the absolute worst thing that could happen? The deal falls apart, market crashes, your biggest client jumps ship, and then he crunches the numbers. Like, can he still survive under those conditions?
Damn, that's pretty pessimistic, isn't it?
It might seem that way, but it's actually super smart for managing risk. I mean, think about it. If the deal still works, even when everything goes to shit, you're probably onto something good.
So always be ready for the shit to hit the fan.
Pretty much, yeah. He says the worst case happens, like, 90% of the time.
Oh, wow. Okay. So even with all that planning, things still go wrong sometimes.
Yeah. And even billionaires, even Tillman has regrets.
Like what? I'm curious.
Well, his biggest one was he negotiated too hard on a car collection, ended up losing the deal because he was so fixated on getting the absolute best price.
What, like he lowballed them too hard?
Kinda, yeah. He didn't realize the other party wasn't as experienced, didn't really play by the same rules.
So sometimes you gotta, like, read the room.
Exactly. It's not always about sticking to your guns. You got to know when to be flexible.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on. He talks about this 955 rule. What's that all about?
This is a classic Tillmanism. Love this one. Basically, he says 95% of any business is usually done right. It's that last 5%, the tiny details, that you need to obsess over.
Okay. Like what?
He gives this example of walking into one of his restaurants. He can tell if it's run well just by looking at the parking lot.
The parking lot? Seriously?
Yeah. Is it clean? Are the lights working? Any smudges on the door? Those little things, they matter. They affect how customers see your business.
So it's the small stuff that counts.
Yeah. It's about creating an experience, making sure it's all polished, professional, Shazy care.
Right. The details matter. So, okay, I'm getting a better picture of how this guy thinks. But what about branding? That's got to be a big part of his success.
It is, and he's got some strong opinions on it. To him, a logo is just a symbol.
Okay, more to it than that.
Way more. It's about recognition, trust, a feeling. You know what I mean?
Like the feeling you get when you walk into like a really well-run place.
Exactly. Yeah. It's what people associate with your company, your product, even you.
So how do you even go about building that?
Well, take the Golden Nugget.
Yeah.
It's a historic name, right?
Yeah.
So he updated it, modernized it, but leveraged that existing trust, that familiarity.
Oh, so it's like tapping into something that's already there.
Yeah. And he points out how the Houston Rockets, their brand is built on consistency, star power, and being in a desirable city.
So it's not just one thing. It's like creating this whole ecosystem.
Exactly. And that goes for anything, a casino, a restaurant, even your own personal brand. Think about it. What feeling do you want people to get when they encounter your work? What makes you stand out?
Those are some good questions to think about. But before we get too philosophical here, let's take a step back. Look at some of the main takeaways from how Tillman approaches business.
Sounds good. Where do you want to start?
Well, this whole idea of eliminating no from your vocabulary, that really jumped out at me. What's that all about?
I think it's about really believing in yourself and your vision, not letting anyone tell you it can't be done.
It's like that, fuck it, I'm doing it anyway kind of energy.
Totally. And that kind of thinking, it can be seriously powerful. It's what pushes people to take risks, do things differently.
Okay, I can see that.
Yeah.
But what about the more practical stuff? Tillman's big on knowing your numbers, right?
Oh, absolutely. You can't make good decisions if you don't understand the money side of your business.
So it's not enough to just have a killer product.
Yep. Got to know how to manage the cash flow, profit margins, all that stuff.
If you don't know your numbers, you're kind of screwed.
Yeah, pretty much. It's like we said earlier, if you don't know where you're going, any road will get you there.
Right. Okay, what else? Oh, this is a good one. Treat every customer like they're your last.
That's huge, especially now with so much competition.
So many choices for people.
Exactly. You can't afford to take anyone for granted. Got to go above and beyond, make them feel special.
Build those relationships. Make them want to come back.
Exactly. Loyalty is key. But we also got to talk about change. Tillman's all about adapting, never getting complacent.
Yeah, the world's changing so fast. What worked yesterday might not work tomorrow.
Right. Got to be able to spot trends, adapt to new tech, all that.
Like he was saying about updating some of his older restaurants, giving them a facelift.
Yeah, got to stay fresh, keep things exciting.
If you just sit back and relax, someone else will pass you by.
For sure. But one thing that I think is often overlooked, but that Tillman's super passionate about, is attention to detail.
Oh yeah, he's obsessed with it. Like he can spot a smudge on a door from a mile away.
Seriously, right. But those tiny details, they can make a big difference.
It's all about creating that polished, professional image. Shows you give a damn.
Exactly. It's going the extra mile, noticing what others miss.
And it all adds up, creates this impression of quality.
Yeah, and that's what sets you apart in a crowded market.
Okay, so whether you're building an empire or just trying to be good at your job, details matter.
Yeah, absolutely. And never underestimate good old-fashioned hard work, determination.
The stuff that separates the dreamers from the doers.
Right. And speaking of achieving dreams, Tillman talked about surrounding yourself with the right people.
You can't do it all alone, right?
Nope. You need a solid team, people who get your vision.
And who can help you make it a reality.
Exactly. Find people who complement your strengths, cover your weaknesses.
Create a culture where everyone's striving to be better.
Right. A team that pushes each other to excel. But even with the best team, things can still go sideways. Tillman's seen it firsthand.
What usually screws things up?
He says it's often not the people on the ground doing the work, but the management at the top.
So it's not the worker bees, it's the queen bee.
Exactly. The ones making the big decisions, signing the checks.
He gave that example of buying restaurant chains that were doing well, but the corporate office was a mess.
Making dumb choices, dragging the whole company down.
It's a good reminder that bad management can ruin even a great product.
Absolutely. You need the right people in the right roles, a clear vision, and a team that can execute it.
And sometimes you got to make tough decisions, even if they're not popular.
Yeah, if it's what's best for the business, you got to do it.
Even if it sucks.
Exactly.
Okay, we've covered a ton here. But if we were to sum up Tillman's advice, what would it be?
I think it all comes down to like a few core things, right? First, that whole eliminate no thing. Believe in yourself, believe in your vision, and don't let anyone tell you can't do it.
It's like he says, if you don't believe in yourself, who the hell will?
Exactly. And second, know your numbers, inside and out.
Yeah, got to know where the money's coming from, where it's going.
Exactly. And then treat every customer, every single one, like they're your last. Go above and beyond. Build those relationships.
Loyalty is everything these days.
Ain't that the truth? And finally, change. Embrace it. Adapt. That's how you survive.
Makes sense. So basically, be a badass, know your shit, treat your customers right, and be ready for anything.
Pretty much. And speaking of being a badass, the guy achieved all his childhood dreams, right? Jet, Forbes list, the whole 9 yards, and then he sets his sights on owning an NBA team in his hometown, no less.
And he did it. Which makes me think, what's your next Mount Everest? What's that crazy goal you're chasing?
Because if Tillman can do it, why not you?
That's a good point. And that's what this whole deep dive is about, isn't it? It's not just about Tillman Fertitta. It's about taking what we've learned and applying it to our own lives.
Exactly. So before we wrap up, think about this. How can these lessons, these Tillmanisms, actually help you get closer to your goals? What can you start doing, like today, to make those dreams a reality?
Because remember, it's not just about having the dream. It's about doing the work.
Hustle hard. Never give up. Who knows, maybe someday we'll be deep diving into your success story.
That's a wrap for this deep dive. We'll catch you next time.